What's up, guys? Welcome back to another video. Today we are going to be doing the reading wrap up for the month of February. I really thought I was going to be able to push 15 books. Unfortunately, I could not get through the last one, but I was going to attempt to read The Throne of Nightmares, but I realized that it's actually a very involved book, and it also feels very fall to me, more so than this season of the year. So I actually ended up putting that one aside. But all together, we made it through 14 books. So if you want to hang out with me and talk all things books, definitely consider sticking around for the video. It's reading time here at JB's Corner. For those of you that are new, my name is Jaya. I put out bookish related content every Wednesday and Sunday. And today is none other than my favorite video, which is by far, I think, the most fun to actually film and do. And that is the reading recap for the month of February. As I had mentioned before, I did make it through 14 books, so I'm very excited to share all of these wonderful books with you guys. That being said, for those of you that are new, thank you so much for stumbling upon this little corner of the internet. I hope you would choose to stick around. We love all things fiction in this little corner, and I definitely have a fiction addiction. So if you feel like you fit into that vibe, you're definitely in the right place. For those of you that are returning, thank you so much for being here. It means the absolute world to me, and I cannot wait to talk all things books with you guys. We finally made it to book 4 of this series. This is the first book that I wanted to talk about, and this is by Toshikazu Kawaguchi. Fun fact, there are 5 books in this series that has already been released, and book 6 is actually releasing sometime this month, which is so exciting. But this particular book, which is Before We Say Goodbye, continues the story of a cafe that is set in Tokyo, I want to say. Is it in Tokyo? I want to say it's in Tokyo. I might be incorrect, but essentially the book is following the regulars that come to the magical cafe known as Cafe Funicula. And basically at this cafe, you are able to visit the past. Whoa, where did you come from? Did everyone else see that little fly? So basically, anyways, coming back to the point, in this book, we ended up meeting characters that basically have the opportunity to go back into the past and experience a moment in time that they may regret. However, the only thing with this is, while they can go into the past for a sense of resolution, they are not allowed to change anything by going to the past. So even though you go to the past and you meet someone and you might reconnect in some way or hash out some particular issue, it does not change the present day. Also, there is the added fact that you must have your entire conversation in the span of time that it takes for the coffee to get cold. Now, in this particular book, we follow the story of a woman who basically refuses a proposal, and she's kind of trying to figure out if it was the right thing or not, because the man that had proposed to her ended up with another woman, or so he said. So she wants to go into the past to confront him. We also hear the story of a daughter who goes back to see her father when the last words she spoke to him were one of anger and frustration, not realizing that he was going to pass away a few days later. We also get to hear the story of a girl who is essentially an orphan, and she doesn't understand why she was brought into the world, so she wants to go back and confront her parents, things like that. It was a very, very lovely book for sure. Altogether, there are a total of 4 stories in this book. The Farewell, I believe, is also the one with the sister. There's a man in this book who also goes into the past, who basically believes in science, and he was an archaeologist, and he never got close to his wife or his children, and he feels like he missed out on the opportunity to connect to them. And so he gets to go back and kind of revisit that moment too before his wife ends up going through a tragic accident. It's just a very lovely story of this idea of, even though there might be regrets in your past, you can always find peace within those regrets, even if the future cannot be changed. Great book, great series. Would definitely recommend, and it definitely is that contemporary fiction novel that really makes you think. The next book that I wanted to share with you guys is See You Yesterday. This was written by Rachel Lynn Solomon. It's very much a play on Groundhog Day. Essentially, we have 2 characters who are very flawed in their own ways because of the past that they've experienced. They are moving into college for the first time. They're about to be freshmen, and they're really hoping for a fresh new start, and they find themselves trapped in a time loop. Inadvertently, they bump into each other and they realize that both of them are within this timeline and kind of stuck on this loop. And they have to figure out a way together to get out of this time loop. At the same time, they also have to confront demons from their past, including high school traumas that have really shaped who they are as individuals now and how they communicate with other people and how many people they choose to let in. It's a very, very interesting, fun, fast-paced story. You definitely get to see them go through all different shades of emotions, from being accepting to frustrated to confused to being like, screw it, I don't care, going through that phase of we're just going to enjoy life and everything it has to offer us. We're going to knock off things on our bucket list because there's no consequences. It's a very, very sweet story. And I think also the way that the characters are developed and they grow throughout the story, it was really fun to discover along with the characters themselves. I do think that the author put a lot of thought into creating this novel and this story, and it was a lot of fun. I do think the ploy on the physics component of it, because they're using physics in order to explain what's happening to them, that was a little bit more tricky for me to 100% agree with or fall into, but I did overall enjoy the setting of the campus, the vibes of the book, the two characters themselves, and I do think overall it was a fun read. I ended up giving this a 3 stars. Just so you know, this one was also a 3 stars. Sorry, I forgot to mention that earlier, but those are the books that I ended up reading thus far. Ashley Poston, who is one of my personal favorites, contemporary fiction, magical realism authors, ended up writing a book called Sounds Like Love, which was her latest in her standalone books that she has released. This has absolutely nothing to do with any of the other books that she's written, but if you've watched any of my previous videos of some of my favorite books of all time, I really enjoyed Dead Romantics. I also absolutely loved her 7 Year Slip book, which is just a sunshine ray in a book. The previous book that she wrote, which was in a novel, that one was also absolutely phenomenal. What was it exactly called? A novel love story. Sorry, that one was also absolutely amazing. So when I found out she released a new book, I had to pick it up. Sounds Like Love is such a cute story. We basically have a famous artist who is born into music royalty, if you will, but has lost his mother and is not as close to his father as people may think. He has history of being in the music industry and has kind of always been expected to behave a certain type of way, which makes it difficult for him to trust newcomers. Our main female lead character is actually a songwriter who has written hit songs for a lot of major artists. However, she finds out that her mother is going through a very hard time at home and that she may be losing her mom soon. As she's trying to grapple with her decisions to be in Los Angeles, chasing this dream, making it, having all this money and royalties, she really questions if that was worth it, if it means she loses that on her mom. These two characters happen to bump into each other backstage. He assumes that she's just another typical girl who's there to hit on him and want his autograph and see him as nothing more than a piece of meat since he's a celebrity. She, on the other hand, is very offended by this and is like, hey, I'm a human person and I was invited here by the singer who's on stage right now because I wrote her song. So not the greatest meet cute. From there, they end up in a position where suddenly they find voices in each other's heads and they suddenly realize that these two have now been forced into a reality where they wake up with each other in their head and they can hear each other's thoughts and feelings, and simultaneously there is a song that is playing on loop in their heads, and the only way for this to end is for them to work together to complete the song. It's a very, very sweet book. It has so much more depth to it than just the beginning that I explained right now. We really get to see the two characters come out of their shell, really see them grapple with the realities of their life, and we also get to see them kind of break down their barriers and learn to let other people in, which was really fun to see. Definitely would recommend Ashley Poston's Sounds Like Love, and this was a solid 4-star. Solid 4-star read for me. I'm sorry, I think that cut in the middle there. Apologize. When I saw this book on the bookshelf at Barnes & Noble's, I knew I had to pick it up and see what it was about. Also, fun fact, I tried to make sure that all the books for this month fell into the theme of Valentine's Day, so all the books are either intentionally pink or red. This one's obviously pink and black, but I felt like because it still has the Valentine's Day vibes, we would go ahead and read it. In this book, we have a set of devils, I guess. Not quite devils, actually. They're like demons. There we go. Advanced demons in hell who want a chance to escape and just experience real human life without having to be the interpreted version of demons basically meaning that they're making everyone make poor choices. They want to actually have the opportunity to have a soul and experience real life and just have real connections with other people and find love within themselves. That being said, these demons escape and they are basically trying to live their best life. However, our main male demon character in this, Asmodeus, is unfortunately cursed, where no matter where he goes or whom he meets, they never ever actually process that he's there. The only people who can really see him and really understand what he has to offer are his brothers. Everyone else just kind of looks through him, or it's like in passing situation. And Asmodeus finds himself in a situation where all of a sudden there is a random girl who is a musician at the same bar that he's at who approaches him and not only has a solid conversation with him, but also not only engages with him in that conversation, also appreciates his looks and what he has to offer. And this has not happened to him in centuries. So he's really questioning what's going on. She's kind of like, I don't know what's happening, but you're kind of cute and I kind of want to get to know you. And she thinks he's a phenomenal musician. They start having a banter. We're basically following their story when all of a sudden a goblin shows up in the middle of the club that they're at, shooting the place up, trying to get the demons back home. Meanwhile, the brothers immediately go into defensive mode. They're trying to protect themselves and their safety. And a demon at their level versus a goblin is like a no-brainer as far as getting rid of the goblin. But he wants to get her out of the situation as fast as possible. The problem is most humans can't actually understand what's going on. She has the sight, so she's able to actually see what's going on. From there, we basically get to follow their romance, and we also get to see the whirlwind of what's going on in terms of the people that are after the demons, trying to drag them back to where they come from, and just the quirkiness of these four brothers as they showcase that there's more to them than what you may assume or think. Overall, it was a cute story. It was a fun play on the concepts. I did end up giving this a 3-star read. I think it was very enjoyable and expect exactly what you would expect from this type of book. And it was perfect for the Valentine's Day season. I will also say this is quite a spicy book. It is a very, 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 very intense part of this book. Again, we're talking about demons. So, and in this particular case, a lust demon that hasn't been able to show lust for a while. So just so you know, if you are someone who's averse to spice, you may be skipping a few chapters here. But I would say the nice thing about this book is it's not the main focus of the book. At least we also get some character development throughout the way. And I do think overall it was a solid read. It wouldn't be a Valentine's Day reading marathon if it wasn't for some sports romances being thrown into the month. So this month, I actually ended up reading 3 of them. So we have here The Right Move, which is the second book in the Windy City series. We have Wildfire, which is the second book in the Maple Hills series. And then we also have The Graham Effect, which is the first book in the spin-off from the Off-Campus series. So let's talk about them. In Right Move, we are basically following the story of Ryan, who is a phenomenal NBA basketball player who is signed in Chicago. He is considered one of the best and the brightest basketball players on the court. His contract is insane. He's making more money than most basketball players out there, and everyone is watching him like a hawk. In return, Ryan always delivers on the court, and he works his hardest to keep his body, mind, and physique in the perfect, body, mind, and intellect in the perfect physique, and he refuses to let anyone in unless they're super important to him, aka his sister. Outside of that, he doesn't really have too many connections to people. Now, the problem is he recently was requested to become the team captain because the previous team captain is stepping down from that role. However, the biggest issue that his coach has about him becoming the team captain is he feels that he's definitely missing a human component to him that he wants to see happen. The only way that he can really convince the coach that maybe, just maybe, there's more to him than the coach thinks is to show that he can connect with the men, but also show he's capable of having a long-term relationship. Enter Indy. Indy is basically Stevie's best friend, who is Ryan's sister. She also works in the air hostess industry, and she is currently also taking care of the ice hockey team for Chicago. They all love her, and she is also very close with Stevie at this point. However, she finds herself in a position that she just got out of a relationship with a 7-year boyfriend because he was found cheating on her. Now she's basically picking up the pieces from where they fell, and she realizes that a lot of her older friends don't really appreciate the extent of what happened and oftentimes are encouraging her to just forget and move on. Meanwhile, Indy is just trying to survive. She finds herself in a place where she now doesn't have a home to live in because it was shared with her ex. She doesn't know who to turn to because her old friends are just not quite there for her, and her life is falling apart. She's also noted as one of the most sunshiny people you will meet. She's very cheerful, very fun, very colorful, very petite, very beautiful. And she and Ryan had the worst first meeting possible in the previous book. Now she finds herself in a position where Stevie has basically convinced her brother to let Indy crash with him until there comes a time that she can stand on her own 2 feet. In the process of doing this, she finds herself in the odd situation that even though the two of them don't really connect at all, Ryan needs a scapegoat. So he ends up making Indy act as his fake girlfriend. This is very fake girlfriend trope for sure. It's also got so much more depth to it. It's just a very fun read, and it was really nice to see these two characters connect. As is true for most sports romances, I feel, that are out there these days, especially when it comes to contemporary sports romance. There is spice in this book, so I just want to put that out there, but it is definitely not the predominant thing in this book, and I do feel like overall the characters were very fun to read. I did end up giving this book a 4-star, and I do definitely see myself continuing the Windy City series. From there, I ended up reading Wildfire, which was also surprisingly quite excellent. Icebreaker, which is the first book in the Maple Hill series, I wasn't a huge fan of. That was following the ice hockey team captain and the top figure skater in their school. That one was a little bit harder to fully appreciate, I think, because I couldn't really connect with the characters as much. This book is a little bit different. The two characters stumble upon each other at a frat party that's being thrown at our main male character's home. So Russ was unexpecting to see Aurora at the party and definitely didn't expect the hookup that they have. Aurora is a rich girl with daddy issues, and she is genuinely one of the sweetest people around. She loves her friends, she cares deeply, she has a big heart, but because she's always been rejected by her father, doesn't really know where she stands with her sister, who is a supermodel and off doing her thing, and because her mother is a little bit extreme in terms of guilt tripping and saying, "Why aren't you here?" Aurora is really struggling with where she needs to fit in, which means she tends to make lots of bad decisions, especially when it comes to men. The thing I think I loved about the Maple Hill series, though, in general, is that miscommunication is not a trope, and I think that's huge. While the book starts off on a miscommunication trope after a steamy one-night stand, where it goes from there was beautiful to see, and the connection between Russ and Aurora was wonderful to see as well. Russ is also very broken in his own way because his father has left their family wanting, to say the least. He's dealing with a lot of addictions and things like that, and so because of that, Russ oftentimes finds himself in tough situations and doesn't know where to lean on. The two of them end up creating a very intimate and real connection and also help each other through the traumas of their childhood, and it's just a very, very lovely story to see. You definitely root for Russ and Aurora throughout the course of this book, and the fact that it's set in a camp setting made it that much more fun because the two of them, after this massive party, end up being counselors at the same camp. Watching the activities that happens in the camp, the other characters in the campsite, as well as the little kids that are running around, was just an added bonus in this book. I will definitely say I preferred this book over Icebreaker, and this was actually a solid 4-star read for me. The third book is going to be following Henry, who is my favorite character in the males cast within the ice hockey sports team at Maple U. So I am very excited to read that book as well. But overall, I do think Wildfire is worth picking up. And if you are interested in an ice hockey romance series, this one does a pretty decent job. Last but not least, I have Elle Kennedy's The Graham Effect, which was absolutely adorable. This is following the story of the daughter of Garrett Graham and the mother Hannah, who were the first two main characters in the off-campus series, The Deal. That book was sensational. I loved reading that book. And yes, spice, of course, is a huge part of it. Again, these are college athletic kids. It is going to be a part of the story. But I think the most wonderful thing about that series, and I can share my review of that series that I did at the end of this video in case you guys wanted to pop on and watch that. But the nice thing about The Deal was that both Graham as well as Hannah actually had a lot of depth to them, and their connection was very real, despite the fact that they had not too much in common at the beginning of the book. In this book, we have our main female lead character, who is the daughter of Garrett Graham, and Gigi just wants to create a space for herself where she is seen as the star athlete she is without carrying the shadow of her father. She just wants to be seen as an amazing ice hockey player of her own caliber without being compared to her father. Our main male character is Ryder. Ryder ends up showing up at this university unintentionally. His school got cut, and because of the academic closure, his team finds themselves at Briar U, which is their rivalry school. So now they have to be absorbed into this hockey team that doesn't even want them. On top of that, they have to prove themselves. And he wants nothing more than to get on Garrett Graham's good side because he wants that validation and that support in order to move forward in the sport. Throughout this process, Ryder is also a very grumpy, dark kind of character, and Gigi is more light and happy and cheerful. So it does have a little bit of that kind of grumpy sunshine vibe to the book. It also has a fake dating trope-ish vibes to it as well, but the two characters inadvertently find themselves in each other's orbit because Ryder wants to have Gigi help him change his image that the coaches have of him and Garrett has of him. Meanwhile, Gigi wants Ryder to show him some additional skills that will help her be even better on the ice. They make a very surprisingly good team, and the two of them end up growing a lot throughout the course of the book. Overall, it was really fun. It was a very cute romance to read, and it was also really nice to see Gigi get her moment to shine as well. And I do think it was a fun read. I can definitely see myself continuing this series, especially since it's following a cast of characters that are basically the children of the off-campus series main characters, and that was just definitely what drew me to this series as well. But I do think overall that energy, the vibes, the quality that I saw in the off-campus series continues, and I do think that Elle Kennedy, as she's putting out more books, the writing style has also improved. I would be lying or reminiscent if I didn't say that this had spice. It definitely does, but that being said, I do think there's a lot more depth to these characters. That was really fun to read. Overall, I ended up giving this book a solid 4 stars as well. I also realized at one point I said the word reminiscent, which was not the appropriate word for that moment. It was supposed to be remiss, and I wanted to say I would have been remiss if I didn't mention the fact that there was spice in this book too, for those that didn't want to read that. So I do apologize for my grammatical issues there as well. Next up, we have The Most Famous Girl in the World. This was actually the book that was selected for one of my book clubs, and this definitely took a very different turn from the other romances that we have discussed so far. This is a book that was meant to be very campy, and it basically is very similar to the Anna Delvey story, where we are following the story of a reporter who has decided that she is going to do an expose on the influencer Poppy Hastings, who basically came into a bunch of wealth by tricking wealthy people into thinking that she was more than what she seems. Poppy was therefore put into the jail system. She has been arraigned, and she is now coming out. And it is up to our main character, Rose, to basically find what is going on and throw Poppy back in jail. She unintentionally also finds herself working with a detective who was also on the Poppy Hastings case, and they end up forming a unique team in trying to take Poppy Hastings down. It is definitely very campy, it's very satirical, and our main character is definitely very, 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 very flawed. So it's really, really hard to root for her. Her obsession, her intensity with which she goes after this case definitely derails a lot of aspects of her real life. But it is a very entertaining story to read nonetheless. And basically we get to see the craziness of the expose that they're trying to build against Poppy as they go on this adventure trying to take the notorious influencer down. I should actually say the infamous influencer down. It was a very entertaining story overall. It was slow though. It was hard to jump into, and the writing style wasn't necessarily perfect for me. There's also a lot of language in this book, and I really struggle with too many cuss words in a book, so that was a little challenging for me. Not at all to take away from the author. I still think she did a tremendous job of creating the story, writing the story, and I do think she got that campy effect that she was going for, which she's actually mentioned in interviews about this book. But for me, it was fun, it was entertaining, but it took a long time to get into the book, and it was a little hard to convince myself to pick up the book, and for that reason alone, I ended up giving this book a 3-star. For those who would want to potentially read this book and also watch a documentary on the same kind of vibes and subject, definitely check out the Anna Delvey story or Becoming Anna on Netflix as well. I recently also discovered an author named Megan Quinn, and I ended up reading a few of her books over Christmas that I absolutely fell in love with. So I decided it was time to actually try to read a real series that she's written, and I decided to pick up Bridesmaid for Hire, which has been sitting on my physical TBR list for some time now. This book was absolutely wonderful. I thoroughly enjoyed it. Of course, it does have a little bit of spice in it, so I just want to put that out there. It's a fake dating trope, and basically we're following the story of a male character whose best friend is our main female character's brother. The two of them have shared a hot moment in the past that then led to heartbreak, and so now she hates him, he hates her, and they now found themselves at a wedding where both of them need to get in with the bride's family in order to move their career forward. Our main male character basically works in a industry where he helps create ideas for the wedding industry. So that's why he wants to get in with this particular family, because they're very, very rich, very, very well off, and the daughter is the one getting married. Our main female character also works in the wedding industry, and she has her own little company where she basically acts as a wedding coordinator, and she's trying to get even more opportunity to build that and also bring in a few of her unique ideas into fruition, and thereby finds herself acting as a fake date for our main male couple so that she can sneak into this wedding. Throughout the course of the book, we see them create a relationship with the men at the wedding, and then things go to SHIT at the end of the book. I think the overall finale of this book was very entertaining to read, and it was really interesting to see the relationship of the family characters, the sister, the brothers, etc., with their father and mother, as well as the relationship of the family with these two interlopers that end up showing up at the wedding. I think overall it was kind of expected set of twists that happened in the book, and I do think to a certain extent it was predictable, but it was a very fun read nonetheless, and I think Megan Quinn's writing is just very, very entertaining. Overall, I ended up giving this book a 4-star, and I do think if you're looking for a fun summer read, or if you're looking for something that's just going to fly by, but you want a fun, quirky romance, especially for this season, it was a great book to pick up. Just Like Home by Sarah Gailey is actually a thriller that has been sitting on, again, my physical TBR for quite some time now. This particular book is actually a horror psych novel, and we are following the story of a young woman named Vera who finds herself back in her childhood home, having to help her estranged mother as she's about to pass away. However, her father, who used to be at this house and was one of her favorite people in the world, ends up being jailed for being a serial killer. Now she has to deal with ghosts from her past and also come to a sense of closure about her own past, her own history, and her feelings about her family while being back in a house that she thought she would never find herself in. It's a very interesting story. It does have elements of supernatural and horror in it for sure, but I do think overall it was a very entertaining book. I think this book was probably also extra fun for me because it was a bit of a surprise, and I think the only way to do that is to go in completely blind. So I'm going to leave you guys with the description I just gave you. All I can say is it was definitely very entertaining and very fun, and I found myself thoroughly enjoying it. I do think that this is a great fall winter read, and I also think if you ever want something autumnal and you want something that kind of is darker for that period of time, or something horror vibes, especially October, this is a great book to pick up around that time. But I also think in general, if you like horror, psychological thriller, that type of thing, if you like paranormal, this is still a great book to read regardless. But I definitely found myself surprised by how much I enjoyed this book, and I ended up giving it a solid 4 stars. Keeping with the theme of books that are not necessarily on par for Valentine's Day, I also ended up reading Severance by Ling Ma. This book is very charged in the sense that it feels very reminiscent of COVID. So I will put that out there. It hits a little bit harder, I think, after the experiences that we all went through as a global community when COVID first broke out. Essentially, in this book, we are following the story of a woman who is trying to survive after Shen fever has broken out across the country. Shen fever is basically a fungus that causes people to slowly start decaying from the inside out. They end up becoming fevered and then they can't ever get back to normal. It's a fungus that kind of turns them into zombies, if you will. And the few survivors that are still there, especially in the ghost town setting of New York City, are just trying to make it through alive. Our main character finds herself, as she's trying to put into perspective her past, her choices from the past, things that shaped her into who she is, with her current trajectory of trying to escape this virus and finding a community and a setting for herself that works, inadvertently caught up in the world of a cult as well. It's very, very intense. It's definitely on the contemporary, realistic, darker side of books. I feel like I would have enjoyed this book a lot more had it not been for the fact that we so recently came out of COVID, and that too being in the healthcare space. I think it just hit a little bit harder for me. But overall, I do think it's a very well written book. I do think that our main character has a lot of flaws to her, but at the same time, you can definitely see her going through a journey of self-identity and coming to terms of all the different things that make her her, that also made her feel separate and different from everybody else when she was growing up. I think the fact that the story is told from two different timelines of past and present was very interesting to read as well. And I do think it's interesting to see the journey of our main female character as she goes from where she is in the beginning of the book to where she is at the end when she finally gets to where she needs to get to. Overall, a very fun read, but just because of the feelings it evoked in me, it was very hard for me to love this book as much as I may have had I read it in a different setting. So this did end up being a 2.5 stars for me for that reason, not because the book was bad. I also finally ended up picking up My Dark Romeo. This is the beautiful, beautiful Amazon copy that I had ended up picking up, and it comes with its own case and everything. It has the painted edges. It is a beautiful book, and I feel like I have to show you guys the book because it's so apropos for Valentine's Day. I mean, look at that cover. This is definitely dark romance. This is definitely steamy. This is definitely very intense, and it's definitely a flawed male character who is borderline villain / main character vibes. In this book, we are following the story of two very wealthy, very, very elite characters. Dallas Townsend, who comes from a small town in Georgia where her father is essentially royalty and makes a ton of money, which means our princess has basically gotten away with just living the best life in existence possible and barely goes to school, but has the typical classic heiress mind that also allows her to think so quickly on her feet. And while she appears very lazy and flawed at the beginning, you really get to see the depth of her character throughout the course of the book. Romeo is our main male lead character. He is also a deeply flawed character. He basically is a billionaire, and most of his net worth comes from dabbling within the world of war. However, his actual passion is finance. Throughout the course of this book, basically Romeo traps our main female lead character, whose name is Dallas, into a marriage that neither of them actually want. Throughout the course of the book, we see them trying to make each other miserable and then somehow falling in love as the book progresses. There's a lot of spice in this book. It definitely starts with physical attraction before the emotional attraction comes in. So if that's not your vibe of book, don't pick this one up. And again, it's a very flawed male character who actually ends up being less of a beast and more of a person. But the Dark Prince Road series in general is dark romance. So I just want to put that out there for anyone who may not be interested in that style of book. But for anyone who is, I do think this was a fun read. I definitely enjoyed it. I ended up physically reading this book, and I did finish the book in 3 days. Not even. I think I finished this book in 2 days, actually. So it was definitely a fun read to just sit and curl up and enjoy with a cup of hot cocoa. And I ended up giving this book a solid 3 stars. I definitely see myself finishing the series as well. Just maybe not one after another right away. But overall, it was definitely a fun, enjoyable read. Last but not least, as I say this, I realize that these 2 books have been talked about extensively on the internet, and I realize that they are loved by many, 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 many people. And all I can say is I now understand the hype, and that is nothing other than the first 2 books in the Boys of Toman series by Chloe Walsh. Binding 13 is probably one of the best books I've read in a very, very long time, but Keeping 13 blew me out of the water. Binding 13 ended up being a solid 5-star read for me. Keeping 13 ended up being a 6-star read. This book does revolve around a lot of abuse, a lot of trauma, especially for our main female lead character. She is dealing with abuse, bullying, a lot of things that young kids should not be dealing with throughout the course of this book, which makes her a very unique character because she's very young in some ways, very innocent in some ways, very broken in some ways, but also very mature for her age in other ways. And then our main male character is a phenomenal rugby player, and he's basically found himself in a position where he now has the opportunity to make it to the country representation and state representation of, I don't know what I'm trying to say. Basically, he's very, very, very good at rugby, and he's on the roster for ending up on a professional team at a college level. That's what I was trying to say. So because of that, there's a lot of fame, there's a lot of limelight that surrounds him. There's a lot of people that only see him as none other than a celebrity, not a human. And it's a very interesting dynamic to see that he's also having to navigate the amount of discipline that he has and the amount of focus that he has that allows him to be the best player that he is, while simultaneously dodging all of the crazy social components that come with that. Was very interesting to read. So again, one of those characters that's very young in some ways, but also has a lot of maturity because of the experiences that have shaped him. So for that reason, reading the love story of these two characters and watching them grow as individuals and also learning to let each other in and build that trust was just so beautiful to see. Chloe Walsh's writing in general is also just beautiful to see. I think it was just such a great set of books, and I can't wait to continue the series. I will also say they are harder books to read. It does focus a lot on the dark aspects of their life, and it doesn't only focus on the budding romance, but it's a beautiful balance between reading about the abuse and all of the horrible things that they're experiencing and the balance of the joy, the happiness that they have in their life as well. Binding 13 was more focused on Shannon and on Johnny, but the second book I liked more because we also got to see more of the other characters in the book. We got to see a lot of Johnny's friends who are going to become very, very important as the series continue and they get their own lead stories. I think it was also really nice to see more of Shannon's older brother Joey, as well as his younger siblings and the family dynamics that she's dealing with, and the transition of the families as they kind of grow to know one another and depend on one another as Johnny and Shannon's relationship becomes deeper. Overall, just a phenomenal series. I can't say enough good things about this. I also don't want to share too much because I don't want to ruin the series. But I would say this is on par with something like Magnolia Parks, where it's just going to pull at your heartstrings and there's just so much beauty in the writing itself. And the story itself is also really fun to read as we read about these characters that have just gone through so much in life. And that does bring me to the end of this video. If you guys ended up making it this far, because I do realize this is almost a 40-minute video, I want to thank you for your time, your energy that you spent with me here today. I love all things books, and I genuinely feel like it's more fun when you get to talk about the amazing books that you're reading with such an incredible community. So truly, it means the world to me to have you guys here, and I cannot thank each and every one of you enough for your watches, your support, and your enjoyment of literature as well. That being said, for those of you that are new, if this was something that you enjoyed and it struck your fancy, I would love to have you come back and be a part of the bookish community we're creating here. Definitely consider hitting that subscribe button and that notification bell so you don't miss out on anything. I put out videos every Wednesday and Sunday. For those of you that are returning, truly so thankful to have you guys, and I feel so blessed to have so many of you enjoying our conversations about books, and I truly enjoy your comments as well. Please don't stop commenting. I really appreciate it. That being said, I will leave everybody with this. Wherever you are in the world, I hope you're having plenty of time to surround yourself with joy, happiness, and love. That you're getting plenty of time for self-care and plenty of time to enjoy your reading. I will catch you in the next video. Bye, guys.